Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Arvada City Council meeting for today, Tuesday, January 27, 2026. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Simpson?
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose? Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Here.
Councilmember Griffith?
Here.
Councilmember Levison?
Here. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
I move to excuse Councilmember Ambrose from tonight's workshop.
All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Councilmember Ambrose is an excused absence. We have two workshops this evening, so I will go ahead and call up our workshop for the Building and Fire Code Adoption Workshop. Ms. Garner.
Actually, Mayor, I apologize. We had to switch the order, so we're actually going to be talking about the comprehensive plan first.
Go right ahead.
Thank
Also
you.
a
And
fun
I
topic.
apologize for the, we had to make that change after the clerk had already sent out the packet, so our apologies to that for that. But thank you very much, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and our Planning Commission. Just wanted to welcome you, our chair and vice chair, and the rest of the members that were here. I know we had one absence, but thank you for being here. We really appreciate this. This is a joint effort, and an exciting one that we're excited to kick off. So without further ado, I'll just jump right into it. We have a pretty short agenda for tonight. We only have a few slides. This is really just a welcome and just a really kind of formal kickoff of the project. We will talk a little bit about where we are in terms of it actually getting started, because you may be thinking, I don't remember signing off on that contract. So, and you're absolutely right if you're thinking that, because you haven't. It's going to be coming to you soon. So that's why we're not ready to bring the consultants up, introduce them, and really start getting into the meat and potatoes of the project. But we wanted to talk with you a little bit about where we are right now. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce our team. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what is a comprehensive plan, what is the process, how we're going to be engaging the community, and what next steps are. And then we'll have a little bit of time. We want to be mindful because we know you have another big discussion that we brought you tonight to talk about building codes. We do want to have just a brief discussion with you and just try to elicit some comments about what you think, what's going to really make the project successful. And we're going to be talking a lot more about this as we go. So I just wanted to take a moment to introduce the team and also just apologize. This is why we hire consultants, because you can see our little graphic over there on the right side of the screen, trying to explain just really the how involved everybody is and really who is coming together for this. So really around it, inside of it, underneath it, all above it is the community. This is a community-driven and a community-focused plan. So we really wanted to underscore that they're also a critical member of our team, as well as you as a city council. Our planning commission plays a very important role because they're actually the ones that will adopt the plan. The council's role is to ratify it, which is confusing, but that is how our code is written. And beyond that, it's the CED team. This is a team effort. There are many, many people that are involved in this, aside even from just the project team. Our consulting team, and then the other departments that have also been weighing in, and we've been working with them extensively prior to even setting out our RFP for this project. So I did want to take a moment to just introduce our team. And you're going to be seeing these faces a lot in the next couple of years. Aside from my face, we've got Rob Smetana here. He's our planning manager. You may have met him, but for new folks. We have Paul Donegan. He's a senior planner. Paul is going to be our project manager for the comprehensive plan. He joined us fairly recently, towards the end of 2025, and we are thrilled to have him. He comes from a background of consulting, private sector as well as public sector experience. So he's been on both sides of the table too. We think that's great. And Chris Sandine, he's another senior planner here. Chris has recently stepped in to become a long-range planner. He was initially focused on current planning, and we've transitioned him over to long-range planning because we've got a lot of work going on. And then I want to take a moment to introduce Jessie Bowders. She's our communications manager. Jessie we are so fortunate to have her, and she's been working really, really hard to make sure that we get as much information out to the community as possible, generating some excitement and some enthusiasm for this process, and we're just really grateful for her participation. I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he's going to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and then I'll jump back in when we start talking about next steps.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here. So a little bit of background about the comprehensive plan. Generally, this is a 10 to 20-year plan, really focused on guiding growth, but also integrating a lot of different elements that really guide us in the government process, and a lot of these plans or other topics are things that really tie to specific departments that we have or other planning projects. So you've probably recently seen the transportation systems plan come through, the housing needs assessment and housing plan, and really the comprehensive plan is not intended to like start over and rehash those issues. It's going to be a matter of integrating those into a comprehensive plan and starting to think about all of these issues sort of in a unified way. How can we collaborate between departments, work together between departments to really come into alignment moving forward? The reasoning to start a comprehensive plan process now, primarily the last one was substantively updated in a major way in 2014. There's been some updates since then, but a lot of that plan has been fully implemented. And so it's time to start thinking about our next goals as a community. We've had a lot of population growth. Over 10,000 people have moved to Arvada since the last comprehensive plan was that major update in 2014. And as a result, as we all know, since 2014, a lot of the world has changed. And so it's a great opportunity to really engage with the community, build consensus on important issues so that going forward, decision makers like you and the Planning Commission can feel confident making decisions and understanding where the community is coming from, what are the community priorities, and helping to align that with departmental budgets and priorities on that end of things. The process is 18 to 22 months, starting now-ish, and hoping to wrap up by the fall of 2027. It takes a good amount of time, primarily because we want to have a really great public process. It's probably, we could do it a lot quicker if we were just sort of like internally getting together and talking about what things we want to accomplish, but we want to make sure we're engaging the community in the conversation, helping to understand their priorities and how those sort of interface with the government budgets and our priorities as well in our departments. And that also includes regular updates to both the City Council and the Planning Commission, keeping everyone up to date on where things are in the process, what we've been hearing from the community, so that when we get to that adoption moment, down in the fall of 2027, there's not any big surprises of like, what, we haven't heard this issue before. We didn't know that the community cared about this. We want to make sure that everyone, is working alongside each other in the same goal towards adoption. Generally, we're looking at a 4-phase process, and really that's a matter of spending some time up front to understand a little bit about the history and the context of Arvada. Why is Arvada built the way it is now? What decisions have been made in the past that have led us to where we are today? And really understanding those existing conditions and using those to really talk to the community about opportunities and challenges so we can understand, hey, like what issues do you see in your neighborhood, in your community when you're getting around the city? And what sort of opportunities do you see? What would you like to see in the future? Because to some extent, change is inevitable, and so we need to make sure that we're guiding change in a way that really aligns with community priorities. In the third phase, we're talking about establishing a shared vision and future scenario planning. So we'll be looking at a few different ways that the city could go and start engaging with the community about options, making some decisions, talking about trade-offs, so that when we are making those final policy directions in the fourth phase, where we're taking all that feedback from the community and the technical analysis of, what's our capacity for growth, what's our budgetary capacity if people want more parks and recreation, if people want different transportation options, we need to truth test that. And so that'll come into play in that fourth phase where we start talking about that policy direction and, importantly, implementation strategies. I'll talk a good chunk about engaging the community because we have a few big goals that we have set out for community engagement. The first is to have robust engagement. We want a lot of opportunities for people to participate. We also want it to be creative. We're finding new and interesting ways to connect with community members. So we have a lot of different ways that people participate. We don't want everyone to expect that they need to come and sign up for a public hearing to get their 3 minutes of say as the only way to participate. So we'll be looking for some creative ways to engage the community. We want to be very inclusive. We want to reach a wide swath of the community. We're not looking to have a plan that tells the city as a whole what the vision is, if it's really informed by a small group of people. And so a big part of that is being inclusive. And that all kind of ties together to being representative. We would love to get through an engagement process where, there's representation and feedback and input from all neighborhoods of the community, people of all ages, renters, owners, business owners, employees, people that consider Arvada their home, their community. We want them to be engaged in the process. Some of the folks that we've outlined specifically, and we're working on specific strategies to engage a lot of these communities, are listed on that right side. And then we also are looking to set up some committees that will help us to sort of have some check-in points with various groups that can help us really truth test what we're hearing from the community and help us make sure that we're going in the right direction. So one is a community advisory group that'll be made up of members of the community, a really representative cross-section so that we're getting a good understanding of different perspectives. We also want a technical advisory group that's primarily going to be different departments. This is being led by CED, but really this needs to be a plan that everyone has buy-in to and really feels ownership of so that we can all be rowing in the same direction, if you will. The other group that we've been internally doing a lot of work with already in collaboration with the neighborhood liaisons and the communications team and the city manager's office is with youth. We'll be doing some youth engagement events, specifically targeting students. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but we've also talked about having a youth advisory group, so really forming a committee of young people in the community, because really, we're talking about the next 10 to 20 years, so we want to make sure we're thinking about the people that will be the next people that are sitting in your chairs, that are in my job, that are, leading the Arvada in a decade or two, as well as doing focus groups and other engagement opportunities. With that, I'll turn it back.
I was going to do a preamble about asking if you could hold your questions, and you did an amazing job. I didn't even have to say so thank you. So that's great. Normally, I'm going to say that. We'll just call that nerves. So what we need to do, and really where our priorities right now, is solidifying our contract with our consultant. We have, we've reached an agreement. We're just in the details at this point. So we will be bringing that contract back to the council for your consideration as soon as we possibly can. After that, we are kicking off our project formally. In advance of that, we have been working to try and create a little buzz in the community. Jesse has been working pretty diligently to put together, we've got flyers that we've put out, we have information on our website, we are working with our partners to just really try to get the buzz going so that people can sign up now. And this is a great time to sign up because nothing has really happened. And we will continue to do this. We're going to continue to try and invite people to come and join us and be part of this process, as well as all the times that we'll be putting out information publicly so that people can join. And when we have specific events, we'll be promoting that widely. But we are going to be working on a public engagement plan. We'll be bringing that back to let the Planning Commission and the Council know of how we want to start moving forward and generally just what our plan and our approach is going to be. As Paul mentioned, we have a pretty interesting and fun youth engagement event that's coming up actually in March. We're going to be inviting you to also attend it and our Planning Commission. This is an opportunity, we're working with 2 different high schools at this point. These are the first 2. We're going to get the other 2 next. We've been working with Arvada High and also with Arvada West. We've worked with their faculty, and right now they're helping us to create a student list. And we're hoping we can get about 30 students from those high schools to come and join us and be here for a whole day. And we're going to talk about, well, a whole day, 9 to 2. I wish that were my day. But they'll be there for 5 hours. They're going to have a chance to meet with elected and appointed officials. They're going to have a chance to learn about how the city works. They might be seeing a couple of really fun projects, and we might be doing some demos. And they're going to talk about the comprehensive plan. And we're going to spend about 2 hours really engaging deeply with them. And really the intention here is, this isn't, this is a serious effort. Their comments are serious, their feedback is important, their engagement is important to us. So we want to treat it with that type of importance, and we really hope to carry this youth group throughout the next 2 years. They can grow with us, they can stay with us, we're going to try to bring in more folks, and we're going to be recruiting from the other 2 high schools as well. So our intention is really to get the entire city involved in this process just a little bit younger, because they are our legacy, they're going to be inheriting everything, so we want to make sure that their input is also considered. And we are also going to be doing a whole lot of data collection, background research. A lot of work is going to be happening in the beginning of this process, where our consulting team, the department, everybody, we need to sit down and talk about what they need in order to be able to assess the conditions. And so that'll be really kind of the first part of the comprehensive plan process. Then we're going to be chatting about how we engage City Council and Planning Commission. We're going to have key milestones that we come back and report to both parties. We're going to have policy decisions that have to be vetted and discussed and decided upon. So we will be having a variety of different types of opportunities. Joint sessions, we're going to have presentations, we will have regular meetings, we'll have small group meetings. You and the Planning Commission can expect to be invited to things. You may be joining individually, you may be coming together as a group. And so we're really going to think about all the ways that we can slice and dice to get good feedback. So more to come on that. And I think that was my last slide. But really what we wanted to just take a few minutes to do, I know we haven't had as much time, and I know you probably don't know a whole lot about this plan, and I apologize that we couldn't come out with bells and whistles and really show you the way we wanted to. Contracting is a pain. But what does a successful project look like to you? And we're really curious to make sure, is there something that we are missing? Is there something that you're noticing or that you really want to make sure that we capture? Because we're here and we're taking notes. So I'm all ears.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation this evening, getting this started. I've been anticipating this with excitement, waiting for us to dive into the comp plan, and so I'm excited to see we're starting that process. And I'm really encouraged by the youth engagement component of that as well. I think that's really important. So thank you for doing that. You know, you and I have had some conversations about this, and so I'm gonna bring it up again. That I think this is a great opportunity for us to really explore how we do public engagement around this, and especially at the neighborhood level, I think is so crucial to get it down to as small of a local level as we possibly can to engage folks in this, because it is such an important part of creating that vision across our city. And I also hope that we take it as an opportunity to look at how we do overall public engagement for our whole planning process, and that's something that you and I have talked about. And so I'm curious to think about that as an opportunity to look at that again too, and to look at how other cities do it. You and I talked about San Diego, but other models out there and how we engage public in our whole planning process, and seeing if this is an opportunity to look at that closely and maybe come up with some new ways to do that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I just wanted to add that we're also really fortunate that on Rachel Kerr-Ewa's team, Brady Porterfield Finn is our connection to a lot of the Neighborhood Leadership Network, to a lot of those local neighborhood types of discussions, and we are leaning on him, and we'll rely on him to help us a little bit to make sure that we're getting connected, and we're really hoping that word of mouth can help us. So if we're missing somebody, please let us know. Thank you for your comments.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. This is great. I'm super stoked to see this happening. As Councilmember Mormon said, that we've been waiting, and I'm really excited about this. Just a couple things I wanted to say is I was excited to see the overview of the different groups that we're interested in reaching out to. I was particularly excited to see families on there. I think we want our city to be very friendly to families. We want to have options for families that are really viable. But also our marginalized communities. I think reaching out to marginalized communities is absolutely critical for this document. And since I wanted to kind of talk about this for a second, I'm thinking of affordability as like a comprehensive thing that we can maybe address in this document throughout. So it's like a common thread. So there are certain things we control and certain things we do not. And there's probably more in the do not column. And so I'm wondering if there are things that we can do from a policy standpoint that might impact cash flow for individuals that would like to be a part of our city. So it's just something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I'd like to see if there are opportunities to interweave that. The other thing I wanted to mention is I really love the community advisory group. I think the group of groups, or whatever you want to call it, but we have a lot of engaged citizens in Arvada. I don't know if we have more than other cities. It feels like we do, but I think we should leverage that as much as possible. We want to make sure that we're not just speaking to the individuals that are showing up and being kind of the squeaky wheel, but I think leveraging the organizational structure of the groups across the city that have really proven to be super engaged and interested in everything that we're doing is probably a good course of action. And for some reason, it makes me think of the Denver airport aliens and like secret tunnels advertising campaign. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. So there's this conspiracy theory about Den Airport that there's an alien base underneath it.
Interesting.
Right, and so they're dealing with like a never-ending construction process, and people are frustrated. And so they decided to kind of lean into the weird conspiracy, and they put posters everywhere, and they're like, this wing's under construction, or is it a hangar for a new UFO? Kind of silly, but I was thinking about that in relation to our very active members of the public. And I wonder if there's a way to sort of poke and prod at our maybe overly engaged community members and say, this is your opportunity. Don't miss it. Participate. I sometimes call them armchair planners. I'm sure that you've heard that as well. But let's invite them to the table and say, like, you have a lot to contribute. Why don't you come and join us? Now's the time. Don't just tell us later that you don't like the way this turned out. Come participate. I don't know if you have to make a conspiracy theory out of it, but that's kind of my train of thought.
Thank you, Councilmember Griffiths. I don't know if we'll lean into a conspiracy theory yet, but let's see. Thank you for those comments. And we are going to be putting together, I think, we haven't gotten there yet, but really thinking about who's going to be in that group. I think we'll be looking for a little bit of feedback and maybe some guidance from the council as well as the Planning Commission. If you have ideas and folks that you would really like to see within this representative group, please reach out to me and let me know. I'd be more than happy to make sure that they're included in the invitation. This is not an intention to be exclusive. We want the door to be open, but we will have to have a community advisory group that's somewhat manageable. So we'll probably be looking at about 10 to 15 members, just because it gets a little unwieldy when it gets larger. So more to come on that. That will be something that gets launched fairly quickly. They're instrumental as a plan gets started. So more to come, but thank you for your comments.
So I'm envisioning mutant celery men roaming Rocky Flats now. That's all I'm saying. Councilmember Pfeiffer and Councilmember Levison, I apologize. I don't know which one of you hit your button first because I was distracted by aliens. All right, go ahead.
So one, and I don't know where this fits in here, but definitely an economic development group somewhere in here, because you do identify current business owners and employees, but what about the future? You know, we have very limited green space to develop. I know this is not land use, but it should inform that direction, because one of the things that I feel we miss is placemaking, and to create placemaking, you need to have employers and living and things to do, and we are so bedroom driven that we have nothing to do except go and spend our money elsewhere, and especially out west. I was talking to Golden City Council, and it is easier for the west to go to Golden or to Boulder than it is to come to Old Town. So we need to make sure that in this comprehensive plan we are thoughtful, and my council member peers know this, stop turning what little land we have into residential. We've got to create placemaking. We've got to create new employment centers. We've got to create and leverage. If we box in, let's just say, the Quantum Commons, then what does that do? The Silicon Valley is a spinoff of what they did for that community. And if we box that in and put houses all around it, we'll never get the economic benefit off that. So when we look at this comprehensive plan, I appreciate the engagement, but there has to be some visionary folks in there that look at the 10 and 20 years. Some of the folks are going to talk about the here and now, appreciate it, but let's bring in some visionaries of what it can look like. You can encourage it, but people don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what to say. But hopefully bringing in maybe the chamber or an economic development association, some of those members, or even somebody outside of like a former employee that works for the Denver Economic Council that might be able to talk about the importance of economic growth for the next 10 to 20 years. So that's the area I would probably try to add to this, and I don't know where that fits, but I just didn't see where that sat in there.
Councilmember, it's under and more.
Oh,
So we have
whoops.
lots, there's a lot of different groups. We've already been kind of seeding this information. We've had some discussions with the AIDA board. We've been talking with the chamber. They're all very aware that the comprehensive plan is coming and that we're going to need their insights. So we've been doing some of that preloading, and we intend to absolutely be engaging.
And be thoughtful of our placemaking and employment centers,
Yeah, thank you.
since they're kind of going away right now.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you so much. Very excited about this as well. I'd also like to see this as an opportunity to educate the public and share a lot of the information that maybe we don't communicate as clearly here or on the city website. So using that. And I'd also like to see us using the networks we have. You mentioned our neighborhood leaders, but also our boards and commissions. Being previously on the festival, sometimes those boards and commissions are in their own bucket. So having this common goal and even maybe giving them an ask of and telling them how they could be involved to get already engaged volunteers to kind of engage others, I think is a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. The comp plan, when it was put together last, I was a part of that. So I'm very excited to see what you're going to come up with, and I'm super excited. One of the things I wanted to bring your attention to, and you might want to take a look at it, it is a very satirical website called E470 Exposed, and it's all in black and white, and it's all about conspiracy theories, but it's driven by the E470 board. And I think that is something that when you start diving down into what is in the basement and where are we hiding the funds, this is a great way to satirize the good work that you're doing. So it's just a suggestion about that. And then another one was there was a question of when we do some of these public outreach and education, could we go to where the older people are? So maybe doing some short little things at some of the senior center for Apex maybe, or I don't think they call it that anymore. It's the community center at Apex. And maybe then one or two of the senior living situations, because there are some very engaged older Arvadans that want to have a voice, but they can't necessarily get to where we're conducting our meetings at schools and whatnot. So that was just an ask of one of the constituents in my neighborhood. So, but otherwise, keep up the good work. I'm excited to see what comes next.
Thank you. Apparently, we have to inject a little bit more humor into everything, so we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We're planners. Humor's hard, but we will work on it.
Interpretive dance.
That could happen. These things are possible. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Echo the thoughts of my colleagues. This is really fun opportunity to get creative, to bring different members of the community in. I absolutely adore, I know you saw me smiling, the opportunities to bring the youth in particular. All voices are important, but especially those of the youth, because you're absolutely right. They're the ones who have to inherit what the decisions that we make now. They're the ones who have to live with it the most. So bringing them in. And then my singular note, I love bringing in the high schools. I love this. Let's just also remember public high schools are like, there are some non-traditional students, so we also have Two Roads and Forge Christian, and so let's also invite them in. That makes sure we're capturing all of our high school opportunity students.
Thank you for that, Mayor. And we were just having this discussion today about how do we reach out? Where do we draw the line? How do we do this? And we've absolutely been talking about we want this to be a big tent. There's a lot of opportunity for folks to be involved. So we're really, like I said, trying to slice and dice how we're going to kind of divvy up the different sectors. And that's definitely an idea that we had. So thank you very much for that.
Fabulous. This is great. I'm looking forward to this process and whatever fun thing we come up with.
Well, on behalf of this entire team, we just want to thank you again. Thank you to the Planning Commission for your time tonight. There's going to be much more to come. We're going to have some good conversations, hopefully not a lot of crying, at least not from you. And then we're going to have a great project. So we're really looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, then, with that, we have one more workshop this evening, and that's building and fire code adoption. Ms. Garner, good to see you again.
Why not? I'm here. It's easy.
Keep
I
going.
I will not be
got this.
conducting the majority of this presentation because if you have seen, looking through your packet, we have a lot to cover when it comes to the building code adoption. So without further ado, I know we probably have some questions. I'm going to ask if the council will please hold all of your questions. We have two presenters tonight. We have Kylie Flynn, she's our chief building official. We also have Stephen Parker, who is the fire marshal for the Arvada Fire Protection District. They're each going to be talking a bit about building codes, and then the fire district is going to, Stephen, he's not the fire district. He's going to be talking a little bit about the fire code and also the wildfire resiliency code / Wildlands Urban Interface Code. Say that 3 times fast. So I will turn it over to Kylie.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Jessica already introduced me, but I'm Kylie Flynn. I'm the Chief Building Official. I haven't gotten to meet everyone, so we did want to kind of start with some introductions and those kinds of things. Just a couple of things before I start moving through my slides. There were some changes, just a couple of grammar changes and things throughout the slides. I did fix that with Kristen's help, but you might see some different changes on just the slides that you're looking at, so just a heads up. And then the other thing is we did try to prepare you and give you lots of knowledge and information to help you as you're navigating this. There's a lot to cover. There's over 200 pages of red lines with all of these codes. We're not going to go through all of those tonight. We're going to go through kind of significant top changes and the basics. But I did just want to kind of go through that we're not going to go through everything tonight. And then let's see here. So I did give you like a cheat sheet. That has a list of all the codes spelled out with some acronyms. Unfortunately, building codes are pretty technical and they can get a little bit into the weeds. We use a lot of these acronyms on a regular basis, so I wanted you to see that and have something to kind of look at so that you weren't lost in some of this. All right. So I wanted to start out with first just introducing our team. We aren't up here often, which I hope is a good thing, but we are the Building Safety Division. Essentially, I'm part of that. There's 15 of us. There's plans examiners that review plans for compliance, inspectors that inspect out in the field for code compliance, permit technicians that collect permit documents and intake all of that. We also have a deputy and a chief building official. I also want to just give a shout out to the other divisions within CED. We all work together as a team. It is not just the building department that's reviewing these. It's also the engineering team, planning, fire department, utilities, and so forth. Stormwater that reviews these as well. We're definitely all together as a team on that. Our primary focus within the Building Safety Division, of course, is just protecting public health and general welfare, life safety. Those are our big basics. But building codes also impact and some things that we review and look at are sustainability, also affordability. These are all considerations that are within the code that they address. I wanted to give you some numbers because I think it's really interesting. In 2025, we issued 26,426 building permits. That includes electrical, mechanical, plumbing, structural, energy, accessibility, all of that, quite a bit. We also performed 6,454 building plan reviews, which is a lot. We issued 6,025 building permits. And then just to give you an idea of how many of those were what kind of types of permits, the number one type of permit that we receive here in Arvada for building construction is residential existing homes for remodels, additions, replacements, repairs, and so forth. That's 4,871 out of those 6,000 permits that we issue are just for those existing residential homes and remodels, which is kind of a lot. It speaks a lot. And then I threw this on here, and I'll speak to why I put this on here in a little bit, but our team holds over 100 certifications with just those 15 staff members, and I'll explain why that's kind of a good thing to point out too. Again, I want to build off just some of this history, some of the foundation of these requirements, of these codes, where they come from, and some of that. So I am going to go through a little bit more in depth of just the basics tonight. Just because I'm new, I want to introduce myself. I want to introduce my team. I also don't know how many of you have been through a code adoption before, or if you're familiar with all of these building codes or ICC or any of it, so I want to give you some of that knowledge too. So just a little history. Arvada adopted its first building code in October of 1955. I have it here. I was hopeful. Can I pass these out to you guys to look at? Okay. It's really cool. I think it's really cool. But this is the first code. Oh, yeah. Can you give this one as well? And then I also have one of the new codes. This is the 24 International Residential Code. I didn't bring all of them. There's actually like 13. They're over 1.5 feet tall. I didn't want to lug them around in here, but I did want you to see them and kind of get a feel for this is how much things have changed. That first book in 1955, that was a singular uniform building code that we adopted, and now we have, again, over 13 different codes. So a lot has changed. They've certainly become more complicated. Arvada created its first building department 10 years later. I keep joking that I think whoever was enforcing this code originally must have been wearing multiple hats, and so they finally decided to develop a building department 10 years later. And then to my knowledge and to my count, this is the 18th building code adoption in Arvada's history, which is also something I wanted to share. Currently, I'm going to go through these. I'm going to try not to read off acronyms because it gets a little technical and weird, but right now, Arvada has adopted the 2018 suite of codes. We call them a suite of codes or a family of codes. They work together. There's some little outliers. We are currently still on the 2009 International Property Maintenance Code. That's the code that our code enforcement team enforces and uses. And then we are currently on the 2023 National Electrical Code, and by reference, we use the 2009 Accessibility Code. It's also called the ANSI. There's like 3 names for it. I tried to put that in that cheat sheet for you. And then what we're proposing tonight is to go to the 2024 International Suite of Codes. There's been a lot of change at a legislation level that I'll kind of go through that are impacting some of our decisions. But we also will be incorporating the 2026 National Electrical Code, which will come out this year, and then the 2017 Accessibility Code. Again, that's just by reference that we use that. It's referenced in our books that we adopt. And then there's going to be a few new kind of code changes. For the Energy Code, we will be incorporating the Low Energy Carbon Code as part of our Energy Code. It's essentially an amendment package that gets wrapped right into that Energy Code. And then there's a new code, which we're going to call the Arvada Wildfire Resiliency Code. We did have to adopt a wildfire code for some legislation. We'll kind of go through that as well. Again, I'm trying to give you guys the basics here because I think it's interesting. The International Code Council, I wanted to introduce who they are. They're the ones who write these books, who put them together and develop them. There are over 15 books. We really only utilize about 11 of them. I say 13 total because there's some other codes that we kind of incorporate in there. But the International Code Council is a nonprofit organization. They don't just develop these model codes. They also put out certifications, testing, so all the contractors that work here in Arvada have to utilize some of these certification testings and achieve those. They also put out the certifications that our staff takes to get comfortable and knowledgeable on these codes. They were established in 1994, and they used to be a group of 3 different groups from across the nation that comprised and got together and created one international code. These codes, these model codes that you just saw, they are utilized in all 50 states, and this same process that we're here tonight doing, it happens all over the country. This exact same thing, and sometimes at a state level as well. California, for example, has their own state kind of code. And these are the most trusted source of model codes, and as I said, they're used all over. They come from hundreds of years of knowledge that have all been put into this book. When we learn lessons, those are the kinds of things that get put into these books. And again, just on this code development process, I wanted to explain that we don't just put in random codes, random requirements into these books. It goes through a really vetted process. It's really transparent. Anyone in this room could propose a code change if they wanted to. It gets voted on through a committee of experts that are elected for those roles, and then it also gets voted on at a public side, in a public hearing. So these go through a really well-vetted process to get put into the codes. They are continuously growing and improving immediately after one cycle is developed. They start working on the next one. And they do come out every 3 years. Our goal is to come to you every 3 years. In the past, we've done more like every 6 years, but we would like to keep this going and keep it moving forward as much as we can. It helps a lot with reciprocity for contractors if we keep up to date, and then also just having up-to-date codes is just in general a good idea for the new practices that are involved in them. And I wanted to, again, just go through why are we adopting modern building codes? What is the point of this? And the answer is that industry and our community, it progresses, and so do building codes, and so do means of construction, and all of that. So we definitely have to keep up to date with some of that. I put down just a list here on this slide of some changes from the last code adoption to now, so from 2020 to 2026. These are some significant things that have changed in the construction industry, just to give you some ideas. There's a picture of a 3D printed structure. We have had proposals for those here in Arvada. Also in construction, you'll notice we are using AI more often. There's robots. I don't know if you've seen the robot bricklayers. I could go on a whole tangent about that. That's pretty cool. There's also AR and VR kind of being utilized. QR codes, the books that you just looked at, they actually have QR codes in them now, the new ones, so that you can scan for what the changes are. So a lot of the information being put out is more accessible. And then shipping container homes, we have our first shipping container home that's going to be receiving a CO here shortly. So there's just a lot of little changes like that that have been occurring. And of course, a push for sustainability, green codes, and just various different things that we're facing here as a community that we need to address. The last one I put on here is just disasters and lessons learned. That is the biggest part of building codes. Building codes are written so that they address any risks and hazards that are being faced in our built environments. That's what they're there for. And the disasters that occur directly relate to how these codes are written and what these provisions are. So on that, I wanted to show you just some notable disasters that occurred, because these have affected these building codes that we're going to be going through and have made changes to some of the things you're going to see. I'm not going to read all of this, but I did try to put kind of a list together. From 2020 to 2021, we did see the Marshall Fire. Everyone's very much aware of that. It was the most destructive fire in Colorado's history. It destroyed nearly 1,000 structures, and it killed multiple people, and it led to evacuation of 37,500 people. It's a big one. There was the Maui fire, which was the top 10 ranked fire in history that occurred from 2022 to 2023. It was the deadliest wildfire in Hawaii's history. As we all know, 102 deaths and $5.5 billion in losses, 2,200 structures that were destroyed. And then I'm just going to go over a few more from 2024 to 2026. And I'll just go through the Los Angeles one. But in Los Angeles, we all know about this one. This was a really big deal. 449 deaths occurred, consumed more than 50,000 acres of land, and it destroyed nearly 16,000 homes. So just to put it in perspective, these changes and these disasters that have occurred directly relate to these changes that we're going to see in these codes. Here's a couple of pictures, as if you haven't already seen this on the news a million times, but I did just want to, again, point out a couple of things. On the right side, bottom right, there's a picture of Layden Rock. This was really recent. We all remember this. But what I want to point out is if you look at there's the fence line in the homes, there's a mow line that actually is a wildfire protection measure that was done here in this community before we had wildfire codes. That played absolutely a significant role in protecting these homes. So you can kind of see just a strip of grass there, and that's where that grass has been mowed to make sure that the fuels for fires weren't there. They weren't present at that location. And then, of course, the Marshall Fire, we all know that this was just disastrous. This is an entire community on that left side picture of a community that was completely destroyed. It's even hard to see with the snow, but all of those homes are gone. And they're still rebuilding from that. And then just going through some benefits of these modern building codes. I've already gone through a lot of that, really, so I'm just going to go through a few of them. Life safety, automatically, that's huge. That is our biggest role here to protect. But also disaster resiliency, community resiliency, energy efficiency, savings for your home, your long-term investments on your homes or your structures, more options for flexibility in the modern codes gives more options for savings. And then also potential reduction of insurance costs. Building codes directly relate to that. And a big one is just improving public health and general welfare. Building codes reduce exposure to hazardous materials. They provide better ventilation and safer environments, which reduces loss of life. So they're really important. It's pretty cool. As we have been going through this, we've had so many goals and considerations. This has been something we've been working on for since the time we adopted the last code, really, from 2020. But we really wanted to make sure we consider what is the best fit for Arvada. Are there specific things that we can address that we're seeing? Are there certain provisions we've adopted in the past that aren't necessarily working for the community? Are there things that can help lower costs? Are there things that can help with considering long-term savings for properties and resiliency for properties? So these are definitely just some goals and things that we've looked at as we've kind of gone through this process. I wanted to go through some cost impacts. This is really difficult to wrap up 13 different books and the cost impacts they're gonna have, so I'm just gonna go over some basics. But FEMA, I thought this was interesting. FEMA estimates for every dollar invested in modern building codes, it saves $11. And that if everyone adopted the modern codes, that would be pretty cool, there would be a potential savings of hundreds of billions of dollars due to damages between 2040 and 2060. More resiliency and the more resilient our structures are, it also leads to long-term savings and cost reduction when rebuilding. So these are really important resiliency things to consider too for costs. The energy, I want to talk about that specifically because that's kind of one of the cost impacts we're looking at. The energy code, it varies so much, but essentially from the 2018 code that we're on now to the 21 version that we skipped, it went there was an increase in costs about, I'll say $2,500, $2,200 around that for initial cost. But of course there were long-term savings. And then from the 21 version to the 2024 that we're proposing now, there was a reduction in costs. So you can see where it gets a little in the weeds when we're trying to figure out an exact number. And then now with our newest codes and the state mandates for their revisions to our codes, there is a slight increase in cost, but I really want to hone in that there's a long-term savings, a really big long-term savings for homeowners and buildings and structures. And then just in these codes specifically, there's been a really big transition in the public comment and the things that we've seen that are in the code now. And that's that we've added in more specific paths of compliance. So there's more options for people to really develop and build a structure in different ways, which is absolutely going to provide a savings. And then the last one is that I'm going to point out is just there's a great potential for reduction in insurance rates with the newest codes. And the reason I told you I would talk back about it again with the over 100 certifications for staff. We also have to go through an ISO insurance rating, and that insurance rating also takes into consideration staff's training, their certifications, the newest building codes that we adopt. All of that plays into our insurance rates for the community. And now we can kind of start talking about some of these changes. There were tons of legislation that we had to review with this one, a lot more than I've seen in the past. I did put a little star next to these two. These are the most important as we talk tonight that I wanted to highlight, and I'll kind of go through those in some follow-up slides. But we have had to review all of these, and it's been an undertaking for sure. Again, I talked about our goals for Arvada and what we wanted to do with this code adoption, but I want to highlight some things we've actually done to get to that point. So number one, we've had to review not only that 13 code book stack, but also that same stack of code books from the 21 version because we needed to see the changes throughout. So that's been a lot of review that we've completed. Again, over 200 pages of red lines that we've been reviewing and ensuring are accurate. We have worked with many stakeholders. We've joined meetings and given presentations to our BCAB members. We unfortunately don't have a quorum right now, so we did have to kind of work with them individually, but we still got the word out to them and made sure that they were part of this code adoption. We also worked with the Sustainability Committee and HAC and the Home Builders Association. We've really taken every bit of feedback we've gotten from each group and tried to incorporate some of that into our thought process and what we're proposing for this code change. I do want to point out the Home Builders Association had recommendations for amendments for us. We did incorporate some of those into our code. And then also just a lot more undertaking from staff. We're updating all of our guides, our handouts, our resources, our websites, and we're creating new resources. So there's a lot that we're working on right now to make sure that everything we're providing is going to align and provide the resources that the community needs for this change. I do want to point out, with Jesse's help, we are going to be putting out a video series with different videos about how to protect your home from wildfires, to the basics. Why do we require building permits? Why are contractor licenses required? Some of the basics, and trying to reset that with the community a little bit. We think that's really important. We also worked with Dr. Cog, and we did achieve the BPC Building Policy Collaborative Grant, which got us $900,000. About a quarter of that will go towards hiring a building consultant who's going to come in and help us with our energy code adoption and creating and updating our resources and guides and handouts as well. We're really excited about that. And then obviously staff has gone through a ton of training. We are putting in a lot more in the future. Be on the lookout. Our website's going to be continuously updated, but we're also trying to incorporate more training for not only our staff, but for the public, and different things that we can do for outreach for the public. In May, we will be up here again to present for Building Safety Month. It's also sprinkler awareness and wildfire. They're all going to go together. But we're going to do something fun for that, for some community outreach and those kinds of things as well. And then here we go, our top 3 changes. And I did give you a list of significant changes if you wanted to read more. There's obviously more than just that list that we could go into as much as you want. But these top 3 are definitely the top subjects we thought we wanted to highlight for you. Number 1 is the Energy Conservation Code, which is going to incorporate the Low Energy Carbon Code. That's the route we're going to propose, and there will be changes for that, and I'll go through that in a separate slide. The next one is sprinkler systems. I had asked Randy if he was here for the last conversations with sprinkler systems. We are going to bring that back up, so that is a topic we will cover. It is currently a code requirement. It's just that we've amended it out every year that we've adopted the code since 2009. So for almost 20 years, we've amended this out, and we're going to propose to keep it in. And Stephen's going to go into some more detail with that. And then the third one I want to highlight is obviously our new wildfire resiliency code. And Jessica alluded to this earlier, but we have multiple terms for this. I did put this on your little cheat sheet, so I don't want to confuse anyone. We have the WUI code, which is super fun to say. That's the model ICC code version of this. The state then came out with a Colorado wildfire resiliency code that we had to adopt at a minimum. It was essentially a package of amendments to that specific code, and then now we're going to call it the Arvada Wildfire Resiliency Code. So not to confuse anyone, there is quite a few little changes. And then just some details on these top 3 is what I'm going to go through last before Stephen kind of takes over. For energy, I want to explain that this House bill specifically, House Bill 22-1362, requires that we adopt specific energy codes. So that is absolutely gearing us towards what we are recommending. We've looked at this so extensively, I don't want to look at energy codes ever again after going through this. But we are going to recommend the adoption of the 24 energy code with the amendment package of the low energy carbon code that the state has put out. That low energy carbon code didn't come out until July, so our original thought was to use the minimum standard, which is the model electric ready, solar ready code. You can see why there's acronyms, these are long names. For various reasons, we are deciding that it is better just to go with this newest code that they've put out, and I'll kind of go through some of that and why. And this is all, I put on some dates here. I'm not going to read that because they honestly confuse me when I'm looking at those dates. I've looked at them too much. And I want to point out the intent of the low energy carbon code that we are proposing to utilize is to minimize the overall carbon emissions associated with new homes and commercial buildings. And it also takes into account home affordability. I wanted to really point that out, that that's what that code is. A little bit more on energy, some of these significant changes that we're looking at. There is a new point system for compliance. It's going to be different than what we've had in the 2018 version of the codes. So it is going to absolutely take some time to train the public on what's required. The state put out a lot of resources we can already use for checklists and things like that that we'll be utilizing for this to help. This system is actually really great, this point system, because you can pick and choose what you want for your home and what you don't. And that those points directly add up to get you to compliance. So there's just more options, which is actually really cool. And then just some other changes with the low energy carbon code. We're looking at requirements for electric ready, solar ready, and EV ready. That might be some unfamiliar terms. Essentially what they mean, it's putting in infrastructure and space in your electrical panels to prepare for future installation of EV chargers and solar panels. In this code too, there will be some requirements for minimum EV chargers. It mostly affects commercial properties. And it's at a minimum, I want to say it's like 2% of parking spaces or something. It's not a ton. Originally, we had some heartburn with that piece. We didn't want to impact affordability. But what we're finding is we're receiving a lot of community outreach for the needs of EV chargers. There's also another House bill that has essentially made it mandatory that these be installed for multifamily anyways. So this code actually gives us the language that we need to do that. So we do think it's actually a good recommendation to do that. The other piece is that with this, it's worth mentioning we cannot use a comm check. You guys may not know what that is either. It's essentially a program that is used, and all commercial properties right now in Arvada typically use this, where you put in a bunch of information and it spits out a report, and we use that report to show compliance. We were worried about this because the lack of being able to use this might have some cost impacts if they're going to have to hire another designer to do that. What we're finding though is the states actually put out their own kind of CommCheck reporting system now that they're creating. We did push out our implementation date, hopefully to July if you agree. We're hopeful that by then that's wrapped up so that we have that option then for the community. And overall, a lot of there are some penalties for fuel burning appliances in the low energy carbon code, but it affects homes that are over 5,000. And when I say penalties, I mean you don't get a point for that total that you need to. So again, there's that flexibility of you can get points in other locations. That's what that means. And then I also want to point out that Colorado, if we go this route, Colorado has created their own low energy carbon code book. So they've taken that amendment package that we have to adopt and put it into the energy code and made one book. That is significant because what we were looking at with mixing and matching options was people would have to go to 4 different places to get to the actual answer. We didn't like that. It definitely feels like it's not going to work for compliance. People are going to be confused. Our staff's going to be confused. So we do like this option a lot better. And I did put out a little graph to show you what other communities are doing. Right now, that little green bar for Arvada should actually be in line with Boulder now that we're proposing the low energy carbon code. That line across that's horizontal is kind of where we have to be at a minimum. And I want to point out some of the communities that are on that minimum standard, they've already adopted the 21 version of the codes with the model electric code at a previous date. So that's why they're kind of sitting there. We're at a point now where a lot is progressing at a state level and we're having more resources. So that's why we are able to kind of jump forward a little bit because we have more options. All right, now sprinkler systems are a really fun topic. There are significant changes, obviously, we all know this. The biggest thing I'm gonna say right now is sprinklers save lives. At the end of the day, that's what they do. I don't think people realize that you have 2 minutes to get out before a flashover in your home. That's 2 minutes to get your family out and your pets and any personal documents you need. This will protect that, and that's what we are proposing this for. That's our jobs, we wanna do that. I will say too, at the last council meeting in October of, I think it was August actually of 2020, there was a lot of conversation of just wanting us to really create a task force and look into this more, and we did that. From 2020 to 2026, there was a task force created. Mary Stahl is here if you guys have questions at the end too to help. But essentially, a group of important people, the fire department, the utilities department, all of them got together and did kind of go through what would these impacts be? Can the utilities, can we handle that? And ultimately, reading Mary's notes, ultimately the current engineering standards and specifications are neutral on sprinklers. Sprinklers can now be installed in all types of properties with minimal impacts to utilities. And then there is no change to the current operations or standards and specifications with this change to the building code. So we wanted to highlight some of that a little bit. And then moving on, Stephen's going to talk more heavily about this, but the wildfire code, this is the House bill. that is affecting our wildfire codes and why we need to adopt it. Essentially, this bill says that we have to adopt a wildfire code. At a minimum, it has to be the state's model that they've developed. That amendment package is what I'm going to call it. And Arvada does have a significant amount that's in a risk area. So we have 70 to 80%. Does that sound right? Yeah. Yeah, that was my thought in looking at the maps. That is in some kind of a risk area. So this is a really big thing that we needed to do, and it's important. Obviously, there is that risk there that we need to help mitigate. Again, the state created that code. They do encourage us to create our own code to make sure it fits for our community, and that's what we've done. That's what we're proposing. That's why we developed our own Arvada code. We worked heavily with Jeffco to utilize their codes, and then we developed that and essentially copied it and made our own version for Arvada. The reason is we want to align with Jeffco. There are so many pockets of Jeffco in Arvada. We didn't want one neighbor being told one thing and another neighbor being told another thing. We definitely wanted some cohesion a little bit there. So that's the reason for that. And then my last slide, and I'm going to let Stephen take over, and thanks for listening to me, bearing through all this building code knowledge. But this is, I wanted to give you a list of just an idea of who else is adopting these same 24 versions of these codes. We've been working heavily with Jeffco. They are going through this exact same thing right now. But this is a full list. There's quite a bit, as you can see, they're going through this. And thank you. Go ahead, Stephen.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and fellow councilors. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Stephen Parker. I'm the fire marshal here, and I'm happy to be presenting here again. This is my second time coming up and speaking to the council. I want to give you a little bit of background on our approach to code adoption specific to the amendments that we're proposing. We really try and keep the prescriptive code as it's written by ICC as much as possible, but we try and amend things that focus on our local needs, not only for the fire department, but the community and the city as well. So we're trying every adoption to try and reduce the amount of amendments, just so that we can be consistent with other communities and just keep it as by the book, so to speak, as you can. So I'm going to go briefly over a lot of probably the higher level amendments that we're proposing. Some are new. Some are just new changes, and some are going to be amendments that we're keeping in from the last adoption. So under operational permits, what these are permits that the fire department provides to ensure that a process is being done by the code. So it's aside from any building permits or annual inspections, we can go out there and do an inspection for their operation. And the two listed here, lithium-ion batteries is new to the 2024 edition of the fire code. As we all know, lithium-ion batteries are everywhere. So the code is catching up, and we have a lot more leeway in getting in and making sure that those places are safe. I have temporary sheltering on there. This is what we brought in the 2018 adoption to allow some flexibility in those situations where we are running into cold weather situations and people need a place to stay. We used to have the severe weather network that operated in the city, and this is kind of what we did to allow the code to do this in certain occupancies that normally wouldn't have the ability to have people reside there. The next one is rural fire apparatus access roads. You may kind of question, why do we need rural access roads here in Arvada when we're primarily suburban and urban? This was really kind of pointed towards the Canyon Pines type development. I know we do have, the city has property west of Highway 93 that has the topography concerns that you can't necessarily work with the standard engineering guidelines. So we took the Jefferson County Road and Transportation Guidelines and kind of mixed what we worked with engineering to make sure that it would work with them, and that's kind of what we're proposing. It allows for slightly increased slopes for access, and then really narrower roads because having those hairpin turns get really hard when you get wide roads. So that's one of the big changes that we're proposing here. Along those same lines, with the city primarily being built out, there's a lot of infill that's going to be happening, whether it's vacant lots or demo and rebuild. And we've seen a lot of people want to try and use their driveways for fire trucks to get closer to their house. And it operationally doesn't work for us. So, and I say typical driveways, we're looking at, 50-foot or less driveways. People want to try and use those. We're eliminating that from the use of the fire department. This one is in line with the Wildfire Resiliency Code. The fire code has a lot of regulations on what you can and cannot burn and where you can do it and when you can do it. But we wanted to kind of establish, based on where we're located and the wildfire risk, is prohibit certain activities within that wildfire space. So you can still have your fire pit, you can still do your recreational fires, you just can't have open burning, so larger permitted type fires. And then the fire code never spoke to what you can and cannot burn in the fire. The intent is for recreational fires and fire pits to be firewood. But a lot of people burn trash and slash, so we put a list of prohibited materials in there to make sure that if you are enjoying your fire pit, that you're doing it the right way. Sky lanterns kind of falls into that category. I don't know if everybody knows what a sky lantern is. Think of a hot air balloon, but you put a little candle underneath it and they float away. This is allowed within the fire code. We don't see it very often, maybe once a year or so, but we put a lot of restrictions on that it has to be on a non-combustible space and they have to be tethered are the primary things so that those don't just float wherever, similar to like a firework. So I don't know if anybody, I'm sure some of you have heard about the retroactive manual fire alarm systems in apartment buildings. This is something that we instituted about 3 years ago, and we've been working with a lot of apartment complexes to get them up to modern fire codes. And more often than not, fire codes are for new construction, tenant finishes, but there's a few things in there that are retroactive. And this is really, the intent of this provision is to give people in an apartment building the notification if something happens so that we don't have to go door to door. The police department doesn't have to go door to door trying to make sure that people are out. Somebody just hits a pull station and it notifies everybody in the building. But there are some exceptions that you can meet within there, and going through this for the last couple of years, there's a lot of apartment stock between 16 and 24 units. And the prescriptive requirement is if you're 16 or more, you can't take any of these exceptions within the fire code. So we wanted to increase that to 24 units so it'll encapsulate more of that apartment building stock to give them more options on what they can and cannot do. And really, it provides them a much cheaper option and route to go to get into compliance. I'm sure everybody has seen the fire that happened in Denver a few weeks ago at that building under construction, and that's what this amendment is directed at specifically. So buildings under construction under the prescriptive fire code, once you reach 40 feet, that's when you have to have a stairwell in there. So it's not only for our safety, but it's for the safety of the construction workers so that if something happens, whether it's a fire or some other emergency, if you're less than 40 feet in height, you don't have any stairs to get out of the building. So we're proposing to reduce that to 20 feet. So anytime you put it on a second floor, there has to be stairs within that building to get people out. And historically, within Appendix B, it establishes the fire flow requirements for the fire hydrants within the community. Historically, we have amended that to say if you sprinkler, whether it's a house or a commercial structure, you can reduce that fire flow requirement by 50%. The prescriptive code allows you to drop that 75%, and we're removing that amendment to go with a prescriptive code so you can reduce if it's a 2,000 GPM fire flow, you can take 75% off of that, and that's what you have to provide out of the fire hydrants. And unfortunately, this day and age, fire apparatus aren't getting any smaller, nor are they getting lighter, despite our best efforts. One of the more recent fire trucks that we purchased is heavier than the current one that we have, so we had to increase the imposed loading requirements for private drives. And then valet trash. This is new to the 2024 edition. We did have some operational requirements that we did based on internal procedure, but now they added this. So if people don't know what valet trash is, think of an apartment complex and you don't want to take your trash down to the dumpster. There's a service that you put your trash can outside your apartment door, and they'll come door to door and pick it up. This is a significant safety concern, and fortunately, they put it into the code. And so we're proposing to adopt that appendix with an amendment of it has to be within a sprinklered building. That makes us all feel a lot more comfortable. If a fire does occur in the hallway, it can be controlled by that sprinkler system. Okay, residential sprinklers. This is not within the fire code. It's solely within the residential code. But in 2020, when we went through this same process, I believe it was Councilor Pfeiffer that recommended this, and we took it to heart. We decided we needed to collaborate internally between the fire department and the city and figure everything out. So we did just that. We put together a committee of fire department, utilities, building, engineering, and planning, and we went over this for probably 6 or 8 months. And here's some of the stuff that we came to a conclusion on. We worked with the engineering codes and standards, and if a sprinkler system is going to be installed, you can do a combination system where the domestic line goes into the house, and you can tap directly off of that domestic line and run the sprinkler system. The nice thing about it is there's a passive purge that you install into the toilet, so every time you flush the toilet, it circulates the water, and that gets us out of the requirement for a backflow. Additionally, there's alternative options. There's a tank and pump system, so it's not connected to the domestic water at all. We did establish maximum meter sizes, so we wanted to not increase meters based on the sprinkler system. So instead of your standard 3/4 by 5/8 meter, we can allow up to a 3/4 inch meter, and that's in the engineering standards. And then we put a maximum flow rate on that. So what that does is it really puts the pressure on the sprinkler system designers to use the flexibility that they have to design the system around our engineering standards. And then some procedure things. If a sprinkler system does activate, the engineering team wanted to know, so if it affected the meter, they can go out and check. So we will, anytime a residential sprinkler system goes off, we will notify the city and they can go and check that. And then the full burden of reviewing and inspecting those systems would fall to the fire department, not the building department. And this is just an excerpt from a PowerPoint presentation that we had put together. And again, Mary could probably speak to this if you need her to, but we looked at the overall system and the capacity, and this won't have a negative effect by requiring residential sprinklers throughout. And then we went through some policy discussion on what could this affect. Question 1, does this affect city standards? No, it's not going to drive city standards, but we take that into consideration. What if the water is shut off for, say, non-payment? That house is no longer habitable, so the sprinkler system can be shut off as well. Road widths, that's one of the common trade-offs that the fire department says, we can reduce the street widths with residential sprinkler systems, but again, we're not going to let that drive the city standards. So we're keeping the road widths as they currently are. It does not change density. It is not, and this is one important piece, and I know there's a lot of questions on this, it does not affect remodels. So it's only ground-up construction that this will affect. And some of the fees associated with that, the fees for a plan review and associated inspections are pretty minimal. It'd be between $150 and $375, and that ranges from 6,000 to 12,000 square foot houses. So the vast majority of the housing stock that we'll see will be less than $400. We can do master plans for tract homes, larger developments where we do one review, and that applies to that model across the board, so you're not reviewing the same thing over and over and over. There is no change in the tap fee, and one of the really important things is there's no change in this system development charges. Here's just a list of areas relatively close to the city of Arvada. This isn't an all-inclusive list throughout the state, but I really focused on the ones close to us. Okay, now the Wildland Urban Interface Code and the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. It's a mouthful. This is something that has been around for quite some time, but after the Marshall Fire, as Kylie indicated, the state decided that we need to really place this focus on areas that are at risk to wildfire. So there's two classifications, and let me know if you get confused at all, because I'm going to talk about Class 1 and Class 2 and Zone 1 and Zone 2, so it does get a little hard. But as far as risk is concerned, Class 2 is going to be our higher level of risk. And I'll show you some maps here in a second, but these are the areas that we really want to focus on for structure hardening and defensible space. And then Class 1 is the lower intensity. So this is a side-by-side comparison. So the one that's a little bit more digitized, that doesn't clearly define Jefferson County, that is the state map that establishes the wildfire zone, or excuse me, classes. If you look at the one where you can clearly see Jefferson County, that is what Jefferson County is going with and where they're going to be applying their wildfire resiliency code. And as you can see with the yellow on the county one, it matches up pretty well with the state one. The main difference is that blue area. And what that boils down to is how the state looked at wildfire versus the county. The state looked at it from wildfire intensity only. How intense is that fire going to be? Where the county looked at that plus what that ember cast will be. And that's really important in these wind-driven events, is when you get a field on fire, a tree on fire, a house on fire, those embers get up in that airstream and they go quite a distance. So that's why they look a little different. And this kind of puts it into perspective. That's the boundary of our entire fire protection district, but it primarily encapsulates the city. And you can see the differences between the state map and the county map, which is what we are proposing. The blue area is fairly intrusive to the east side, but the requirements are fairly minimal. Most of them are going to be defensible space that people can do on their own property, where the building requirements and the structure hardening is almost what they're doing currently. And a little sneak peek, those blobs on there, those are some of our CWPP areas of focus that we're going to start working on here soon. So applicability of the wildfire code. It's for new structures and exterior alterations to existing buildings. So if you do an interior remodel, none of this will apply. But there's a lot of exceptions in there. So if it's smaller than a certain percentage of the roof or the siding of the home, this code will not apply. Another interesting thing that's really nice, painting, staining, or similar maintenance work that you do to your house is not going to generate the need for this code application. And I'm going to have Kylie speak to the structure hardening because that is her area of expertise.
So these two classifications that we have, I wanted to identify what we're actually looking at, what are we actually talking about that may be required in these two different areas. So the Class 1, that's that blue area on the map that Stephen just showed. It primarily will focus on requiring Class A, which is the highest standard of fire-rated resistant roofing material. Just to point this out, they're already being used across the city for most re-roof applications already. Additional fire measures may be required between the roof deck and roof covering. That's really for when they get down to actual replacement or new construction that's applicable. A re-roof won't necessarily have to do that. There's specific flashing that may be required, fire-resistant gutters may be required, and some ventilation may be required of coverings for the vents. Based on feedback from the community, we will be putting in just some extra clarification on if you're doing a re-roof, we probably want to add these vents type of thing as well to help with some of that mitigation. And then the Class 2 structural hardening really relates more to, it includes all of the Class 1 requirements too, let me point that out. But in addition to that, there's additional fire measures between the roof deck and roof covering. Let's see here. I have to get down to where I didn't repeat my notes here. Ventilation may be required to cover the vents, fire-resistant construction for roof eaves and soffits, rated exterior assemblies. Again, new construction might have a rated assembly requirement. Flashing requirements under floor protection. So under decks, you might see screens surrounding raised decks. And then garage doors, the perimeter gap there would be required to be filled in. I can't remember what it says. I think it's some extra flashing there, some extra weatherproofing to prevent any of that fire flow into and under those garage door openings. And then nearby accessory structures might have some requirements as well, just to prevent that fire spread. So, hope that's good.
And I will point out when I was talking about applicability that if you're replacing your roof, you don't have to meet all of the code. It's only for the pieces that you're affecting. So you won't have to reside your house if you're replacing your roof. It's only for the work that you're doing. So the other piece of the wildfire code is defensible space, and that's what we're doing on our property, because we all like having nice yards. We like having green grass, trees, shrubs, all that. This kind of directs what you can do and what you can't do in certain areas. So Zone 1 is 0 to 5 feet out from the house. And you can kind of see that neon line. There's a number 5 over by the driveway. That's the area we're looking at, from the house out 5 feet. No combustible plantings can be put in that area. No mulch, so it has to be fully non-combustible. So as you see here, we're going to be looking at rock and concrete for sidewalks. Trees, if there's an existing tree and it's a mature tree with a 10-inch diameter or greater, you can keep that tree there. You just have to, what they call, limb it up or prune it up to where fire from the ground doesn't catch that tree on fire. But anything less than 10 inches has to be removed from that 0 to 5 feet. So Zone 2 is going to be our 5 foot to 30 feet out. And this has a lot less requirements on it. Basically, remove dead plant material. Rake your grass, don't leave mulch everywhere, just get that out. Firewood piles, we do see that from time to time, especially with the houses that have wood-burning fireplaces or stoves. You can have those, you just have to keep that wood pile 30 feet from the house. And then tree crowns, so when you have multiple trees adjacent to each other, those crowns of the tree have to be 10 feet apart. So this slide is specific to Zone 2 for both Class 1 and Class 2. So you have to put shrubs spaced so that they prevent structure ignition. You don't want to have it close to your fence so you can get the fence on fire and then that spreads to adjacent structures. You don't want to have shrubs under the trees within that drip line. And really the reason for that is if a ground fire catches a bush on fire, we don't want that communicating up to the tree and then spreading. The major difference here is that in Class 2, shrubs have to be 10 feet away from a tree. You can no longer plant it closer, it has to be 10 feet away. And this is one thing that is different from the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, and we're trying to get this adopted in Jefferson County, is prohibited plants. I'm not a plant expert. Basically what that boils down to is junipers. This is not going to allow junipers. They grow really nicely, they stay green, but the problem is they are very flammable. Fencing. You can still have combustible fencing within these codes, but where the fence attaches to the house, it has to be non-combustible from the house 8 feet out. So the rest of the perimeter can be combustible, however, whether it's a split rail or a privacy fence, but where that connection is made, it has to be non-combustible. And then there's Zone 3. We won't see much of this within the city because we don't have properties large enough where homeowners have to mitigate from that 30 feet out to 100 feet. There will be some situations, but really what this is, pruning your trees up, keeping plants and trees separate by at least 6 to 10 feet, and then removing all hazardous planting materials. And that concludes everything that I have for the fire code and the Reader's Digest version of the wildfire resiliency.
All right. I will open it to council questions. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Well, you're right. You did answer all my questions from there. There were some. I thought I'd bring up new ones anyways. I have to make it fun, right, Steve? I think you addressed it. I heard it. I just want to confirm it. The home sprinklers, one of the impacts was the fire hydrant pressure. I think if you're saying the whole community is sprinkled, you're going to reduce the requirement of the flow of the hydrants. So check, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because that's always a struggle, because then that leads into the question of existing communities that over time might be rebuilt. Did you talk to, I don't see anyone from utilities here. Oh, okay. Did you talk about the zones and the pressure changes if, say, a whole community decides to turn over? Like give you my area that's like 50 PSIs to my house and they decide to put sprinklers in and I'm at end of line? What does that mean to the city? And will the city take the hit to fix that?
So in general, the pressure zones won't change, in part because we still have the commercial properties that are scattered through, are scattered throughout that still have these larger fire flow requirements. But the
But like residential areas.
But even in the residential areas, pressure is not determined by fire flow. Pressure is determined by serving a second or third story shower.
I think my fear is if the sprinklers are going off, just say the whole area just starts catching on fire, and this community was sprinkled, and maybe it was a pre-existing, pre-designed loop for your service line for water, right? And there's a lot of factors, elevation. Trust me, your team has taught me a lot about this. But let's just say the community's rebuilt and they're going to follow the new code, especially out west. That changes the underground infrastructure, because if those houses start going down, I don't know if you'll hit your 50% flow at all in the area if the houses were like a Marshall Fire. You're not going to get any flow. Does that make sense?
Let me start with.
It's two questions, you
There
and you.
There are two questions there, and one of them is that in the Marshall Fire, one of the things that happened was that as those houses burned, the service lines just started spewing water. So it becomes a moot point around the sprinklers or not sprinklers.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. It's especially the new code, they're plastic lines anyway. So you're saying if the house is going down, it's going to unload the water no matter what.
That is what has happened in fires in California.
And that's a good answer. I'll take that one.
And sprinkler systems aren't going to have their own line going into the house. So you're not going to have your domestic line and a fire line.
Right.
They're using the same one.
line.
So if you lose domestic, you lose fire. So in the Marshall Fire type situation, this wouldn't exacerbate that problem.
Okay. And that answers that question. Okay. Now this is completely different around pressure. It's more, I had a struggle with this over and over, are when we approve townhouses, I struggle with the alley width. Are we discussing alley widths anywhere in here? Where does that fit in this conversation? Is it good? Because 28, when you drive by like these right here on Ralston Road, I'm trying to picture your apparatus going down one of those alleys.
Yes, there's two pieces to that. So our minimum width is 24 feet. If the structure doesn't exceed 30 feet in height, a 24-foot wide road is perfectly fine. Once you exceed that 30 feet, then that road increases to 26 feet, and that's all prescriptive code. It's tight, but we can get down there, and a lot of times in these townhome developments where you have a lot of these alleys, honestly, we probably won't even need those as access because they're sprinklered, and that gives us a lot more time, and we increase what we call the hose pull. The prescriptive requirement says you have to be able to reach the entire perimeter of a home within 150 feet. We have a lot of discretion in increasing that dimension, so we can not pull a fire truck right up to the front of the house. It can be further away because 99% of the time, it's going to be controlled by that sprinkler system anyway.
Okay, and I drove by this one, you guys check it out on your way out, but there's 5 rows of 3, 4-story townhouses, and they allow parking all along the side of that road to go onto the farthest back row of homes. You know, one of my concerns is we say all this, but then we don't go back and enforce fire zones, parking zones, and then that far back building that you can't get to is jacked up because everyone decided to park and put storage in their garage, which some of you were listening to me dealing with earlier. So I don't think it's a solve here, but I think we need to get serious about parking enforcement where we say there's fire zones. If we accept some of these changes and so forth, we've got to enforce parking in front of commercial establishments and even into these residential areas. Because I fear no one's fearing anything, and then one day you need to get back into that last building, and you're not going to get back there because people just park and we don't enforce our rules. And I think you guys can write the tickets on those fire zone.
We cannot.
You cannot?
No.
Only PD can? On fire zone violations? Okay. Well, maybe our parking enforcement program can grow a little bit. But those are actually that's the only question. Other than that, I'm just to give you, since you're new, the first meeting I went to in 2011, because that's how long I've been up here, was on residential fire sprinklers. And that was November of 2011, first business meeting of the month. And we're still talking about it. But we're in a better place. New faces, better place.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, sorry about that. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the thorough presentation. There's a lot in there. I think, quite honestly, it's a lot to try and keep track of because are we just taking questions about fire right now? Or are we talking about the whole enchilada?
The whole enchilada.
The whole enchilada. Wow. Okay. All right. That's fun. Great. So I have some experience in this space. I worked at an architecture firm for a very long time. I'm not an architect, but I worked with people that were applying code. So IBC code and different things were tossed around quite a lot. And I know there's a lot of value to the code changes that we propose from time to time. I really like to balance those changes with practical, economic-minded sort of timeliness. So like, I don't want to be making updates and changes because it's just something that we're kind of in tune with and we're going to do it on a regular basis. I really want them to be purposeful. I'm thinking of like, you know, making sure that our egress doors are facing the right direction so people can get out of a building if it's on fire, that sort of thing. So comprehensively, when I'm looking at all of these updates, which I still need to go and spend some time and study and make sure that I fully understand. I do get nervous when I see things like penalties, that word, penalties, right? That makes me nervous for affordability. I get nervous whenever we enact a new requirement for a building type like sprinklers and single-family detached that we don't currently require, that will turn into a requirement for remodels and retrofits, and we'll just keep kind of going down that road. I want to ask questions like, what is the measurable danger that we're avoiding? And I'm just kind of giving you a look into my thought process here. It would be safer for me to lie in my bed and bubble wrap and never go outside. That's not realistic, and I don't expect anybody to take that as advice. But it illustrates a real point that we will have measurable impacts of some kind by changing code, not just sprinklers, but other things. And most of that I'm worried about is financial. And I'm giving you a sense of the way I'm looking at this. I feel we're in a financial crisis, a housing crisis right now. I don't feel like we're in a building code crisis. I'm really willing to listen and hear if I'm wrong on that, but I just want to give you my impression there. Some specific things that I'm thinking about because we're talking the whole enchilada. As a landscape architect, I don't like the idea of forcing tree spacing to 10 feet. There's a lot of research that says that trees actually would love to connect and create a consistent canopy for heat island mitigation and tree ecology and health, all that kind of stuff. So that's a random, super specific example. I'm thinking from other, let me pull up here a couple notes. I'm thinking too about, our current residents and our future residents, and any opportunities that we can build in to make living in our city less of a financial burden. I'm also thinking about business owners. I'm thinking about small businesses and what their margins look like. And I guess maybe trees, bubble wrap, and all this aside, what I'm going to ask is, I'm misunderstanding sort of the transition from what the state is going to require us to do and what we would like to see happen because it's the optimum of safety and updating our code. Is there maybe a high-level overview that you can help me with to understand what's something we cannot avoid that we have to comply with, and then where these other things are that we can discuss?
Into the microphone, please.
There's a lot more to this, and it is tough to compile those 13 codes and all of that into a quick presentation. But yes, the little cheat sheet I gave you guys, it does at the end have some of those details and the minimums that we have to hit. I can go into some detail really quick, and I think it's important we do. So for the energy code specifically, and I'll point out too that we're here tonight to get your feedback. This is perfect. We still have time to make these changes, and we want to do that. This is just our efforts to put this together and our decisions based on a lot of processes and work that we've done to get to this point. But we want your feedback, and we want to make sure that we incorporate those things. So for the energy code specifically, we have until, if we adopt any code before July 1st of this year, we have to, at a minimum, adopt the 21 version of the energy code, along with that amendment package for the model electric ready, solar ready code. So those getting ready for these new EV chargers and solar panels, that is a minimum. We can't avoid that. That has to happen. The reason we're saying we didn't want to go to the 21 at a minimum is because actually the 21 version of the energy code is more restrictive. Doesn't have as much flexibility. I'll give you an example. In ceilings for R value for insulation, it bumps up to R60 in the 21, and then it bumps back down in the 24. So they did a lot of work to make that better code for that 24 version. This is also, I'll point out, while I say we want to adopt every 3 years, that's a lot of mostly for staff reasons too, not just for what's best for the community. There's a lot that goes into that, and of course that is my focus. But we intentionally skipped over the 21 version. When it came out, we intentionally didn't go with it and decided to wait, and we'll do the same thing in the future. We're not going to push this for the community. We want to make sure it's appropriate for the community. We are facing some legislation that we do have to hit certain deadlines right now with what we're facing. But essentially, back to the energy, I didn't mean to get off topic there.
I did it plenty of times, it's okay.
I go on tangents sometimes. On the energy side of it, if we adopt after the 1st of July, then we have to adopt the 24 version of the code with the low energy carbon code. So you can see we have that option. What we were looking at in utilizing the 24 version of the code with the model electric ready code, which is what we originally had planned for, when the reality of that is we'd have to utilize the model electric ready provisions, still use portions of the low energy carbon code because we have another House bill that we're facing for multifamily EV chargers. We'd also have to utilize the 21 version of the codes for certain chapters, and then also the 24 version. So there would be 4 different places for people to go to. I was joking around that if we did do that, we would have to end up typing this into a full book, because I can't imagine how that would be for the public to actually enforce this and for them to understand. We don't want to get in a situation where codes are so complicated that we're seeing people not pull permits. They're there for a reason. We need permits for a reason. We need construction to meet these minimum life safety for a reason. We don't want to do that. We don't want to push the public away. And so that was the direction from staff that we ultimately felt this was a better opportunity. And then the penalty portion of that, I can give you some more details. I hate that word too. Yeah. That's literally what the word is that they use when they're describing this, and it does suck. But I can give you some more details on that too and actually share some of that. There's a lot to these code changes. As you can tell, this whole enchilada tonight, it's difficult to go through all of it. That's why we provided so many extra resources, and we're here for questions if you have that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that is exactly what I was looking for in terms of an overview.
Yeah.
I appreciate the kind of the broad strokes there. I think, and this is what I'm concerned for, obviously, is the cost. I think it would be of value as something that we could maybe highlight in a future presentation when we look at this more closely to decide on it. Like, where are the items that are going to add cost for residents today, residents and businesses today and in the future? Even if it's, pennies on the dollar, I appreciate the comparison between how much could be saved from a property loss standpoint versus how much it costs, and I think that should be included too, because it's part of the whole conversation. But, I mean, if we're talking about in the same breath almost in between meetings, people that are so close to the margins of being able to afford a home, that we have to figure out our sheltering mechanisms. So for me, I'm nervous about any additional cost that's not absolutely required. Now, with that being said, I think there's some updates in here that I'm really excited about. The lithium-ion batteries that are almost impossible to put out once they ignite. I'm really glad that there's some additional permitting around that that's required. I'm also glad that we're having a conversation about making some exceptions for sheltering, because we have, a max capacity, and there are situations that are extraordinary with cold weather sheltering. Those things are great, but these other issues are related to some of those problems. Maybe we wouldn't need so much sheltering consideration if we didn't have the affordability crisis that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's complex, and I appreciate the time you're putting toward it.
I do just want to make one point. We do understand and appreciate the affordability, and that this is a perceived additional cost, right? What many people don't look into is, are we talking to the builders, and what can they do finish-wise to reduce the cost of a home to get it into that category where more people can afford it? We don't always need the hardwood floors. We don't always need the granite countertops. Let's keep in that safety system. If we equate this to a vehicle, you can have a luxury vehicle and an economy vehicle, but you're not taking out the seat belts. You're not taking out the airbags, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the ways that the industry as a whole, including code enforcement folks, how do we get those costs down to make sure that the people are safe within those buildings?
Yeah, I like that illustration. Another thing that I'll say, and then I'll give my colleagues some opportunity to speak too, I'm a big fan of the options that are available to our residents are codified so that they have these as options. I think sprinklers in homes are great. I don't like when we force things on our residents and our home builders that have some downstream effect. I don't know exactly what they are, but I know that there's some effect because we have something that wasn't there before. And I think, and I don't want to pick on sprinklers too much, but when we're looking at appliances and we're looking at other systems that are being brought up to code standards for environmental concerns, I think that's great too. I would like to see those options as economically viable and preferred, not forced. And so that's my thoughts, and I think I've exhausted most of my time, so go ahead.
You're good. It's fun to have a planner on the council. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, and thank you for the exhaustive presentation. I found it delightful and entertaining. So I had a question, and maybe I misunderstood you when you said insurance rates that are based upon the staff certifications may be lower for consumers?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so what
Yeah.
does that look like?
Currently, and I'm trying to find the documentation from the previous CBO. If I remember correctly, I was here for 6 years for that time that we last went through this process. If I remember correctly, we had a class rating of 3. In general, there's only a few jurisdictions, and they may not even hold this anymore that have a 1 or less than that. So 3 is actually a really great rating. As part of that rating, we go through and identify how many certifications do all of us have. Do we have any engineers on staff? Do we have master electricians, master plumbers? There's a whole 28-page document that we have to go through and provide all of this information to. And my goal is to go back through that process when we get this team, rebuilt. I mean, I'm new. I need to help this team grow. But we will kind of plan to go back through that and see if we can reduce insurance rates again. But the insurance, what does ISO stand for? I always get it mixed up. Insurance Services Office, yeah. So they do utilize and look at our most current building codes and all of that information in that rating that they give us. And that lower rating does directly affect insurance rates for the community. So we can certainly provide more on that too.
Well, I'm glad I understood that correctly, because that is really important right now in these uncertain times. Mr. Griffith asked about the penalties. So there is, what I'm seeing with the sprinklers, number one, can we do something like, could we maybe put a sprinkler in the kitchen, fire suppression in kitchens, since that's where mostly the fires may occur, or fire suppression where somebody has a fireplace in their home. That way we're not maybe putting suppression in the entire house, and maybe that will be a little more cost effective. I mean, is that something that we've thought of?
Unfortunately, I don't believe that's the case, because you never know where a fire is going to start. You know, we're not really worried about the building systems, the building construction. It's the people and what they do within the house. So that can vary throughout the entire structure. But the intent of a sprinkler system for a residential house is not to necessarily extinguish the fire. It's to increase the time for that fire to flash over so that people can get out of the structure. The beauty of it is the majority of the time it will extinguish the fire. But because there's so many variables, you know, if it happens here, and you just have it over your kitchen, that doesn't necessarily protect you if you're sleeping in your bedroom and something started in the adjacent bedroom.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. And then I see that there might be somewhat of a balance of environmental protection with the fire protection. And the reason I say that, also in the building codes, where you're talking about appliances being, that we don't want fuel burning appliances. So I'm assuming like a gas stove or a gas water heater and the such. And so being able to pick and choose what kind of stove, I think, I don't cook, so it's just stove or an oven. That kind of appliance, people want to have that flexibility to have that as an alternative. And then also the trees to prevent heat islands, especially in the illustration where we had a paved driveway and then pavement around, and that can get warm. So then you have that balance of, the heat rising and making the environment hotter versus having trees to prevent heat islands. So those are just the conundrums that we come across when we're solving for one problem, but we might be inadvertently causing another. And so I just want that to be, that we think about that when we're looking at the codes. And we don't really want to get rid of a lot of our mature trees. So when people, although a canyon pine's a completely different animal, you're going to have to clear around that because those are the rules. But when people are building in town, maybe just, for lack of a better word, scraping and rebuilding and having those lovely trees around their home, I think sometimes that's why they're doing it, understanding that we are going to lose some trees. So I just want to make sure that we balance our codes and our fire codes with some of our other goals that we're trying to achieve, like environmental sustainability and that type of thing. But this was great. Thank you for the primer on the codes and on the fire codes. I think that's really essential for understanding where we're moving to the future. So thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and clearly there's been a lot of work going into this, so I really appreciate all that you and your teams have done on this. I've certainly been learning a lot through this. Just a couple comments. One is that I'm really happy to see the new energy code and the low carbon code be incorporated, and I think that, as we talk about costs in particular, those long-term savings will help people stay in their homes with that. So I think that's really important to be included in the evaluation. And I guess maybe to throw a bone to the state, but it sounds like maybe they did something right, And the low energy code book is all one book now to make it easier. So I just want to call that out, that maybe they did something right for once. And then on the sprinkler piece, I've been a big proponent of moving forward with sprinklers, and I do believe they save lives. I can't remember, did you mention how having sprinkled buildings lowers insurance costs? Did you cover that? I can't remember.
It can.
Okay.
So it depends on numerous variables, but primarily it goes down to the insurance carrier. But we've seen anywhere between 1% and 10% cost savings.
Okay, so it could be significant.
It could be.
Okay, that's good to hear. And then my last comment is on something we haven't talked about, but I know it came up in the waste diversion plan conversations, and that's an equal space requirement for trash and recycling. So when you think about in new builds for chutes and for outdoor enclosures for the trash bins and so forth, to make sure there's adequate space for recycling as well. So I don't know if that is something that would be part of the code update, or if we would do that as a separate ordinance, but I just wanted to call attention to that as well.
I think that there's many ways we can address that. Building code-wise, I'm not sure of a place that we really can build that in. This might be more of a conversation with for the engineering standards or the planning land development code. But I certainly think that's a conversation we can have and kind of try to address.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this presentation. My husband and I are personally of the perspective safety always. That mindset, and I think this also brings up that question of the safety always, or your perception of that, and then safety at any cost. So my questions kind of surround around that. I'm seeing the goal as fire safety without, or making sure there's no additional barriers to home ownership. And I wanted to know what we're doing now. Currently, are we making it as easy as possible for those that want to install those to do so?
Yeah, we always try to make things easy on, ultimately the end user, the occupant, whether it's commercial or residential. So we really try and focus on, when we get a residential sprinkler system, we want to get it turned around as quickly as possible so that we don't affect that construction process. We have seen quite a surge of residential fire sprinkler systems come in. Most of those are because we're in infill areas that can't meet some other piece of the code. Therefore, the trade-off is sprinkler it. But there have been some developments that have opted to just proactively do this without any trade-offs. So we are seeing it becoming more and more accepted because a lot of our surrounding communities already require it. So they're used to it. They already have it built into their costs. Again, I do understand that it adds cost, but there are some cost savings throughout, like in the townhome situation. It doesn't have to have a 2-hour structurally independent wall. You can reduce that rating and it doesn't have to be structurally independent. So there's cost savings like that throughout both the fire and the residential code.
Awesome, thank you so much. The other question I had is, with your mention of we don't want to take out seatbelts and airbags, in your opinion, would these residential sprinklers be the seatbelts and airbags, or is there a compromise, a middle ground of certain density needs to have these, or certain square footage?
Right, it's a system, right? So just like a vehicle, the airbags work in tandem with the seatbelt that works with the structural stability of it. So that's really what Kylie had mentioned earlier about this being a family, a suite of codes that they all kind of build and rely on each other. But density, a lot of people think of it as, if we have a lot of homes really close to each other and we're looking at home-to-home ignition, really, if we can stop that fire in that one home, we don't have to worry about if it's these detached townhomes that are 3 feet from each other, or if we have an acre worth of separation. If we can stop it here to where it's the size of a trash can versus burning a whole building down, and God forbid it happens during a high wind event, then we could have much higher implications.
And my last question is, how would we be enforcing and educating the community? For example, I definitely have some mulch and plants near my house. So how are we going to get that information out and make sure that folks are protecting the outside of their homes?
Yeah, it's a big lift, and it's going to be very difficult because we don't have enough staff to do this between the city and the fire department. The state isn't providing any assistance on this. So in conjunction with building safety, we're putting as much educational material out on social media, on our websites, Arvada report, as many areas as we can. But we also have people within the fire department that are going out to community events and talking to people and trying to get that grassroots effect and have it spread throughout the community where they can call us and we can go out there and do a voluntary home assessment. Unfortunately, I only have really 1.5 people that's dedicated to the wildfire issue. The primary burden is going to fall on building and probably planning to a high degree. The fire department, we're still kind of working out the ins and outs of who's going to do what. Obviously, we're going to partner together to make as big of a effect as we can, but it's going to take a lot of time to really understand how we can affect the current building stock. Newer stuff is easy until somebody moves in and starts planting trees.
I know we just talked about this, but I'm going to throw it out there again. We're starting our comprehensive plan, and part of our comprehensive plan is going to be focusing on resiliency, and we see this as a perfect opportunity to be talking about this with a lot of different people throughout the city. So this presents a lot of opportunity right now that we want to take advantage of.
Awesome. That was another question I had. So thank you very, very much.
Councilmember Pfeiffer, you want another whack?
Yeah, I do. So one last is on the vents, on the fire, because, you know, I've worked with your team on even my house, and I think I've done a good job, but out where I am at, you know, to replace the vents, I realized my vents are like spaced, I don't know, 6 inches apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, 400 vents. And these charcoal vents that, I think they're charcoal vents, if I remember right. I don't know what they are.
Some options are that way.
Yeah.
Right.
To replace those, it was something like going to be like $10,000. So I want you all to keep that in mind when you talk about the vents. I get why.
Yeah.
But I don't know who has $10,000 just for the vent. So I'd hate that my roof gets replaced and then all of a sudden I get tagged with a $10,000 vent, you know, cover change because you're bringing me up to code.
And we're trying to work on, you know, potential grant programs. You know, so if we could, now that we're going to have our CWPP complete, we can go out there and search for money. And hopefully if we can be awarded that, we can start providing some assistance to homeowners that are wanting to do that. There's other options to where, like my house is the same way, where you can buy rolls of this mesh at a very low cost.
Put it under the eave.
And
the
then
whole
you
way.
just put it up underneath the eave. So there's options. The cookie cutter ones that you can go buy that fit nicely up in a pre-cut vent, those are probably more expensive, but we have options. And as we get further and further into this, we've known it's been a concern for a while, but now that we're really getting the codes and getting the CWPP in effect, we're wrapping our heads around it and figuring out ways that we can help support the community in getting us to where we need to be, because it truly is the weakest link type situation where we have to try and get the entire community involved. Otherwise, that one weak link could topple all of those dominoes.
It just makes sure that if, I'm just picturing a place where I'm in a place where insurance is already jumping, okay, because it's fire. I go and replace my roof. I upgrade the roof to be compliant with the new code. And then, oh, by the way, now I got to do my vents, but my insurance is going to drop me if I don't do my vents. So just be thoughtful, because the minute I hear it up here that this is happening, we're going to have a whole different discussion immediately on the code. So
Yeah.
we need to be thoughtful through that, because you're assuming it, like a roof. Think how expensive a roof is. We're just assuming that insurance is going to cover the roof for a hell event. That's what we all pray for sometimes, is just new roof from a hell event. But then you have a domino effect of costs.
Definitely.
You know, I could see my roof being $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 now.
Yeah.
Because I have solar panels now, and I got to pull them off to put them on. So do you see, just
Yeah.
because now our energy code says I need to make sure I have solar panels because that's how my house is done. This goes to Mr. Griffith. So just, I know we get excited over the 13 books of code, but we got to be thoughtful of the domino effect on the home buyer. And I do appreciate, or the homeowner, I do appreciate like the fence, the 8 feet, that those compromises are good, but let's just replace the roof. What are all the domino effects to that homeowner? Okay.
I wanted to say too, I want to clarify, right now in the wildfire code that we have written, if you replace a roof, you don't have to necessarily replace your vents. What we've done is add clarification on that.
Okay.
So just pointing
All right.
that out, that'll help a little
But
bit.
just make sure there's not a cause and effect. I'm
Yeah.
trying to fix the roof, and I want to be in compliance with the roof, but don't have all these other requirements,
Yeah,
to go along with it. That just makes it, screw it. I don't want to replace my roof now.
Yeah.
And that causes a different issue.
that's a, different issue. We don't want that.
Yeah. And then the last thing, I have recently received some concerns about access to the permits team. So if this all changes, are we doing anything to improve process through permitting to ensure, because this is going to be a lift on a lot of people, because a lot of people will come in as just a homeowner and they're going to ask a lot of questions. And if I'm getting complaints and we're dealing with old code that we've known for 10, 20 years now, I can only imagine what the volume of customer service is going to be needed there. So what's your thought around resourcing?
Well, right now, we're in the process of updating, actually completely changing our permitting software system. If you have any questions, Josie Sook is here and she can talk at length about it, which we don't want to do yet. We're in the process. This is going to be changing. We don't want to make a lot of significant tweaks to our development review process until that permitting system has been changed.
Okay.
The rationale for that is that we're hoping to build in a lot of mechanism into that software system that helps to alleviate the problems that we've been experiencing with our current software system. And that absolutely affects our customer service. It absolutely affects the types of issues folks are going to have, and we want to be able to drill down and focus on what the most critical issues are, which part of it is dealing with new building codes, dealing with, we're updating our comprehensive plan. We might be making changes to our land development code. We all have to step up and address this issue holistically throughout the community of all these changes and what the impacts are.
Yeah.
So we are working on that.
And when I think of a persona of a customer, I think of John Marriott coming in and talking to you, right?
Yeah.
There's joking with this too, but he wants to do everything himself. He wants to follow the minimum code, and he's going to come in and talk. So just kind of think of the personas that come in and how it impacts, not just over the phone or your software. You're going to have somebody wanting to right here at your
Absolutely.
desk.
And we're
And-
here right now to answer
Yeah.
those questions, and we're here every day to answer those questions at our counter in person. We're happy to do that. And the other thing that, I want to make sure that we do, especially when we talk about the development review process and permitting, we're having those conversations with the community. We're trying to reach out to those that are the most impacted, our builders, our contractors, our property owners, so that we can really understand what those issues are. This is a cumulative process. We do it on a regular cadence. We're about to go back out and work with the chamber and their sector partnership to talk about the issues that have just arisen. So we are constantly trying to lean into those issues, and if we can make a quick fix, we're going to. But overall, we recognize that this suite of codes is going to have an impact. We want to be there to support the community in all the ways that we need to be, and we will be, and we are. The one thing I would also, I want to note, my colleagues haven't mentioned this, but they did kind of allude to it when we talked about the other jurisdictions that are also adopting these codes. This is also an important philosophy that throughout the metropolitan area, there are benefits to all of us having a very similar, if not the same code. And often that does not happen. So you'll see some that, like us, we're at 2018, some are at 2021, some are at 2024, some of them maybe 15. It's difficult for our contractors to navigate that when they have different cities with different rules and everybody looks different. That creates cost and complications for our projects. It also creates costs and complications when our builders get a freebie. When we are working with a building code, let's say the 15 or the 18 building code, there are deficits to that and deficits to our overall buildings when they get built if they're not up to the most current standards. We want to be up to current standards because we want to be competitive with all of the municipalities that are around us that say, you can come to our city and we can guarantee that you get the building codes that are the most up to date and the safest. And a lot of people do look for that. So we want to make sure that we're competitive. We want to make sure that we're comparable
You're
with
talking
our
about
partners.
from a home buyer perspective. They look to see if their home's been built to
And
those
businesses.
codes. And businesses. Okay.
Absolutely. And we want to make sure, too, that our inspectors are up to speed and they know exactly what they're doing, which I think Kylie had alluded to, getting this grant money to help us with the energy code is a big deal, and we're really excited about that because the whole purpose of that role is to come in and really help. How are we going to make this easier? How do we address this and make sure that all of our materials, as well as our staff, are up to date and ready to go?
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to take seconds if you'd like to.
I do have a few questions.
Yeah,
All right,
go ahead.
thank you. So quickly, the list of cities that you just referenced, if we could pull that up. I have no idea what the slide number is, forgive me.
No, that's okay, and I apologize.
Nope.
Going back.
One right there.
There we go. So Commerce City actually just stripped sprinklers out of their residential code. Could you
Correct.
speak to that?
I don't know the specifics around it, but I did just hear, I think it was within the last week or so. Unfortunately, I missed the deadline on getting that removed off of there, but that was one thing that I had heard, that they repealed that.
Yeah, I would be curious. I believe, and it had something to do with the affordability, and obviously Commerce City is still developing quite heavily, whereas we're more towards infill at this point, and they've still got a lot of open land. But just for an update, I would be curious about what their rationale was on making that move. And so then in addition to this, I recall that the last time we talked about this back in 2020, I remember that hearing. I was sitting in Mr. Griffith's seat at the time. I remember a very interesting proposal that the fire department brought forward, and I don't believe it was discussed tonight. And so I'm just curious what the rationale, if this logic is still on the table. Essentially, because of the anticipated cost to the home builder, that then increases the cost of the home, the entire affordability issue that we're grappling with. One of the proposals was because of the increased time that sprinklers provide the fire department, that the hydrants could be further apart, therefore offsetting some of the master development cost with the surrounding infrastructure improvements. Is that something still on the table?
Yeah, that's always an option, and that's one of the main trade-offs that can occur with sprinklers. Street width, hydrant spacing, which goes to that 75% reduction for fire flow.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to balance the needs of the entire water system, because I'm a big advocate for that. But because of the engineering and water quality and everything that goes into it, that may not be as viable as an option. But I would always propose that, and we could look at it at any development review to see if that could happen.
Absolutely. Ms. Dahl, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yes. In general, I don't know that we would be changing our hydrant spacing because the hydrants are used for maintenance. And as he noted, water quality, there's a lot of uses to hydrants beyond fire protection. And that is one of the things the task force settled on, was that we were not going to change our hydrant spacing because the utilities crews wanted it to stay the same to help with flushing of the system.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then one of the big concerns that I think a lot of us are going to, so obviously when we look out west, we have very different needs. As we look towards the south and eastern parts of the city, we're not at nowhere near the same fire risk, particularly in relation to like a Marshall Fire type event due to the high wind scenarios. This most recent wind event, it felt like a very gentle breeze here at City Hall, if it was breezing at all. So then my thought is it possible to do some of this where the fire danger is at a much higher prevalence, but perhaps not put some of these onerous restrictions on the infill that happens where the fire restriction is much lower?
And are you speaking in reference to the wildfire code?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if I can get the right slide pulled up here.
There we go.
So the higher requirements for Class 2 is really covering our most risk-averse areas, and those are going to be the higher defensible space and structural hardening. So the blue area, that's really kind of where it extends past, and really the intent of that is that ember cast, because although during that last wind event out here, it wasn't very windy, my office is all the way out in
Oh.
Golden, essentially.
Oh,
and
it was awful out there.
Significantly worse. And that's the main concern for our Class 1 area in the blue, is if something happened in that higher risk area because of that higher fire intensity, that could, with the wind, spread further
Yes.
into the
No, I absolutely appreciate that. So I guess what I'm asking here is, like, you go all the way east. For those who may be watching at home, the long line with the curve right there, that's going to be Wadsworth Boulevard. So we're going east to Sheridan Boulevard here. So this kind of gray area, and even that tiny swatch east of Sheridan that isn't in any color at all. As we're looking at this, do we need the same sort of restrictions citywide, is what I'm saying?
Right, so the gray area and then the area that's east of Sheridan, that has no requirements under the
Okay.
wildfire code. It's only that yellowish orange and the blue.
And would we require sprinklering then in the gray and in the uncolored?
Well, when we talk about sprinklers, we're looking at wholesale for any new residential construction. And the International Code Council's WUI code does require sprinklers within homes within risk areas. So it's really kind of two complementary things. And when you look at residential sprinklers for a wildfire situation, it's to not stop the fire that's coming towards your house. It's stopping that house fire from becoming a wildfire.
Understood. Thank you. And then I suppose this one's more for Ms. Garner. For anything that's currently been approved, housing units currently in the queue but have not broken ground yet, are they, if we were to adopt this, would they be subject to this and they have to go make changes?
No.
Thank you.
We are going to have a grace period. We also have a grace period for adoption of the code. We've been speaking with our developers and the folks that are coming in with big projects, and we've been talking about this particular issue. And our intention is, we do not need to make your lives harder. There's a significant amount of planning that goes even into your infrastructure. And so when we make changes, that can be way down the line from where you already are, if you have a project that's technically in the queue. So we are really trying to create a lot of grace, give them a time frame where they can be essentially kind of brought in and exempted from the code. They can just use our 2018 code. And maybe Kylie can talk a little bit more about what those exact numbers are, but that's entirely our intention, is to create that grace.
Okay, great.
I'll add just a little bit more. So we did create an implementation plan. Our goal is to adopt, but then not start enforcing and implement this until July 1st. That aligns with the state requirements for this mandatory wildfire code. We felt that was a better stance. And then, as Jessica spoke to, any developments that are currently in the development application process, that they've put significant time into this process to plan for working with the 2018 codes that we currently have adopted, we have written in some extra verbiage there to help them so that they can utilize the existing codes. The other thing is, a lot of our development, our new homes, they have master permits. And we will allow them to utilize those master permits that were approved under the current code to finish out that subdivision. I'm going to use Trailstone as an example. They do have master permits. They'll be able to finish out their subdivision without needing to comply with the new codes.
Thank you. I actually had Trailstone written down here.
Yep.
So there we go, along with
Yes.
Rangewater.
It will not affect Trailstone with their master plans the way that they are set up. That's consistent with what we've done in the past with master plans. We realize that it takes a lot of time and energy and money to go into these developments. That is, like Jessica said, we're not trying to make their lives harder. We definitely want to work around that and make sure that what they've planned for is what they can utilize.
Okay.
So we have created that.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Mr. Griffiths, she's all yours.
Thank you. I promise to be more brief and maybe even more fascinating with my last round of comments. Two things that I was thinking about. I'm glad we talked about Marshall Fire, that we briefly talked about the wind event. So this is things that I learned recently that I was pretty surprised to learn. But the Marshall Fire, I didn't know this, but there were houses that burned to the ground that had sprinkler systems. And sprinkler systems aren't an infinity shield. I realize that, but they can help save lives. I think that's a valid point. What was interesting, though, is that Superior is allowing the residents that are rebuilding their homes that burned down to opt out of the green building requirements and the sprinklers. And I thought that was extraordinary, considering the conversation that we're having here. So I was wondering if you had any background on that, because that's the extent of my knowledge on it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head as far as the Superior issue. I'm not speaking from a position of I was in any of those meetings, but it's similar to what I've heard is looking at, you had an existing home, you've been living there for 30 years, it burns down because of this, hopefully once in a lifetime event. You shouldn't have to go up to the current codes. So they carved out that exemption to say, if you don't want to in your rebuild, you don't have to. But everything that wasn't either existing or permitted prior to the Marshall Fire still has to be sprinklered. And Louisville kind of did something a little opposite of that. After the Marshall Fire, they completely repealed the sprinkler requirement, but then last year they brought it back in. So they do have that requirement there. And then to your wildfire comment, as I said, residential sprinkler systems aren't to prevent a wildfire from taking your house down, because all of those sprinklers are within the house. So it's a foregone conclusion. If you have a wildfire that reaches your house, a sprinkler system will do nothing. It's only for fires that originate within the house.
Okay, and I appreciate that clarification. And going back to the wind event, this is more for our residents. That was really difficult. I mean, I don't think we really lost power for a long time, but there were folks in Arvada that did, and other folks in Jefferson County. And it was more than an inconvenience for some. It was days for some. And in that case, I've received emails from folks that were upset about losing food in the freezer. And I've also received some interesting comments about what if it was like this weekend when it was below zero?
Right.
And what happens then? I mean, you have to have electricity to run even if you're running a fuel, natural gas or something like that for your boiler. You still have to have electricity, but you could turn the stove on if you have a gas stove. And somebody brought that up to me, which was an interesting thing to bring up. I think the public will be sensitive to code requirements that, coupled with that recent experience, might be less desirable, right? Like, all my stuff is electronic, and all of a sudden now we don't have power for a couple days, and it's -2 outside. All the pipes are going to burst. Yeah. My house is gone.
Right. It's a fine balance, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to be proactive, but do you really know when that point is actually a viable point to flip that switch, right? Unfortunately, we don't have any control over that. When Excel decides to do that, that's Excel's decision. Obviously, we have conversations with them, try and understand their thresholds and when they're doing that, so that we can, if we get that information, we can get it out to the community specific to those exact questions. It's challenging, but I do have a photo from Highway 93 right around 58th, between 58th and 64th. There was a power line that snapped right in half, right? The day that the PSPS happened. So we can forecast and, armchair quarterback everything, but had that line been live, there's a higher potential that a fire could have happened and resulted in a disaster.
Yeah, and I don't want to criticize the exercise, just something to think about. And this is in general to a comment for staff. I don't know if we had some sort of contingency, but maybe Mr. Pfeiffer can elaborate. If we were in a below zero condition and we had the power off, do we go out and turn the water lines off so that the buildings don't? It's an open question. I mean, it's a total possibility, right? Like, that could happen.
Yes.
Well, and talking about codes, I mean, the big thing right now, I could tell you, I'm in line for getting my batteries put into my house, and there's a whole Generex, line of people, and then that's getting noise issues and other problems. And I worry about generators because sometimes generators can generate a spark, right? Depends on them. I don't know. It depends on how they fire up. But I mean, I'm telling you that every neighbor of mine is getting some sort of backup power because of everything you just said. So the code's going to be interesting. You know, I'm putting in a battery plant because I don't want to create noise and I want to go off grid and use my solar. But there is that huge domino effect. Water, heat, you know, oxygen, like our grandmother down the street.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry, I don't mean to burst out. My
Yeah.
dad had this issue with the hurricane where he has a CPAP or whatever so he can breathe when he sleeps, and they had a power outage, and he couldn't sleep for like weeks
Yeah.
because they had no way to power that machine, and that could easily be something that happens. So we're not going to solve this tonight.
But the codes, I mean,
yeah.
the codes are getting into it. There is a
This is
relationship to
very
it because
fascinating.
but the codes are important
Noted.
because you are getting into EV, your power, your solar, and this PSP is a new thing. I can look at all of you. I don't think any of us know how to deal with this PSP right now, and how does our code work with that? Or PSPS, whatever they're calling that thing. Who said that? Yeah, see you too. Oh. But the code needs to think of that, I mean, almost to that point, because I'm sure you're going to get a lot of requests for batteries and generators, and I know the people I'm talking to, it's like a dance for 8 weeks to try to figure out what the right placing and what we're going to do and how it works. And then when I called our Metro District, there was like 75 applicants because they have to go and get approved through the Metro District too. So hopefully this code solves that issue on top of it all.
And I'm going to point out too that we highlighted in my presentation 3 significant changes. There's a lot more to this. As far as generators, there's some changes that do address some of this in the new codes. I don't know if you saw, I looked back at Josie, but we are getting a lot of generator permits coming in right now. So just something to consider that is happening. But there is a lot of change that does directly help with some of the challenges that we're facing in the community. And I would be glad to share some of those really positive things. We wanted to highlight these 3 things to get them in front of you tonight, because these are the big ones. But there's a lot of really positive, really great change too that will help with affordability, that will help with homelessness, and great changes for having different paths of compliance and options for people. And we've made changes too based on what our experiences have been just over the past 6 years of what hasn't worked in our code for the community. So you'll get to see all of that too at our first reading, but there is more, and I can share more on that too.
Excellent. All right. My final note is I'm thrilled we're banning junipers. Those things are dangerous. All right. All right. Mr. Wick, anything from you this evening?
Just to remind the council that on Monday night, February 2nd, we will have the West 72nd Avenue open house at the Community Rec Center, 6842 Wadsworth, where we'll give a presentation to the community about the decision to discontinue the underpass project.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
Morris, anything from you?
Nothing from me, Your Honor.
All right. Great job, team. I know that was a lot of stuff. We are adjourned.